The chamber of the Galactic Council was so large that even the biggest cities on Earth would look small inside it. Thousands of seats floated in circles around a bright central platform, and every seat was filled with representatives from distant star systems. Some were tall and covered in shining scales, some were machines with glowing eyes, others looked like clouds of light floating in the air, each one powerful, ancient, and proud of their civilizations. At the very center of the chamber stood one single human. Ambassador Elena Hayes. She looked small compared to the towering aliens around her, her dark blue uniform simple and plain, without the glowing armor, royal capes, or strange technology that many council members proudly displayed. A tall reptilian delegate leaned forward in his seat and looked down at her with amusement. "So this is the human diplomat," he said with a deep rumbling voice. The alien beside him gave a loud laugh. "A fragile species from a young world," the second delegate said. The laughter spread quickly across the chamber. More and more council members began to whisper and laugh while looking at the humans standing alone on the platform. Some tapped their claws on their desks, others leaned back in their chairs as if they were watching a comedy show. Above the chamber, massive transparent walls revealed the stars of the galaxy shining in the dark void, and floating screens displayed a small blue planet slowly turning in space. Earth. To most of the council members, it looked small and unimportant. A newly discovered world with a young species that had only recently developed faster-than-light travel. A large insect-like delegate raised one of its long arms and spoke in a sharp clicking voice. "Your species has only just begun exploring the stars," it said. "You barely control your own world, your people still fight among themselves, and yet you request a seat among the oldest civilizations in the galaxy." More laughter echoed across the hall. One silver-skinned alien leaned back in his seat and smiled. "Did your leaders truly believe this request would be taken seriously?" he asked loudly. Several other delegates chuckled and nodded. To them, humanity was just another young race that thought it was more important than it truly was. But the human ambassador did not react. Elena Hayes simply stood quietly in the center of the platform. Her hands rested calmly behind her back, and her face showed no anger, no embarrassment, and no fear. That silence made the laughter even louder, because many council members believed silence meant weakness. Finally, the High Speaker of the Galactic Council lifted a glowing staff into the air. The ancient being sat on a floating throne above the chamber, watching everything with calm golden eyes. Slowly the noise faded. "Human representative," the High Speaker said, his voice echoing across the massive chamber. "You may present your statement, though many here doubt your species is ready to stand among us." A few quiet laughs returned. All eyes turned back toward the human. Everyone expected excuses, or nervous words from a young civilization trying to prove it belonged in a room full of galactic powers. Elena Hayes slowly looked around the chamber. She watched the aliens who had laughed at her. The reptilian warrior. The insectoid scholar. The machine intelligence glowing with blue light. Then she looked up toward the stars beyond the great glass ceiling. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm and clear. "Before humanity asks for a seat in this council," she said, "there is something the galaxy should understand about our species." Some delegates rolled their eyes. Others leaned back in their chairs, clearly expecting a boring speech. But Elena Hayes continued speaking without hesitation. "When you look at Earth, you see a small planet and a young civilization. That is true. But what you do not see is the reason humans survived long enough to reach the stars." The reptilian delegate gave a short laugh again. "Oh, this should be interesting," he muttered. Elena slowly lifted a small data device in her hand. "With your permission," she said calmly, "I would like to show the Council a short record from humanity's past." The High Speaker nodded once. "Proceed." The lights in the chamber dimmed as a massive holographic screen appeared above the platform. Images began to form in the air. Storms crashing against human cities. Volcanoes erupting across the land. Wars where humans fought each other and survived. Then explorers walking into frozen wastelands and burning deserts. Many aliens watched with mild curiosity, but some began to look slightly confused, because the humans in those images kept surviving situations that should have destroyed them. The images continued changing. Battles. Disasters. Moments where humanity almost disappeared, yet somehow always stood back up again. Then suddenly the final image appeared. A giant alien warship floating above Earth. Several council members straightened in their seats, because they recognized the symbol on that warship. It belonged to a powerful species that had vanished from the galaxy centuries ago. Elena Hayes looked up at the image and then back at the silent council chamber. "You laugh at humanity because we are new," she said quietly. "But the last species that underestimated humans," she paused for a moment, "is no longer here to laugh." For the first time since the human diplomat had arrived, the Galactic Council chamber became completely silent. The silence inside the Galactic Council chamber felt heavier than before. Only moments earlier the hall had been full of laughter, but now thousands of alien eyes were fixed on the image of the ancient warship floating above Earth. Many of the council members recognized the symbol on that ship. It belonged to a powerful empire that had once ruled entire star systems. The Carthan Dominion. Centuries ago they had been feared across the galaxy. Their fleets were massive, their armies unstoppable, and their leaders believed no young civilization could ever challenge them. Yet one day the Dominion had simply vanished. No survivors.
No colonies.
No explanation. For hundreds of years the mystery had remained unsolved. And now that same warship symbol was floating above the human home world in the hologram. A tall crystalline delegate leaned forward slowly. "That symbol belongs to the Carthan Dominion," the alien said carefully. "They disappeared 200 years ago." Another council member turned toward the human diplomat. "Why is there warship above your planet?" he asked. Elena Hayes stood calmly in the center of the platform. Her expression remained steady while the council waited for her answer. "Because they came to conquer Earth," she said. A quiet murmur spread across the chamber. Several delegates shifted in their seats. The reptilian councillor who had laughed earlier gave a short snort. "That is impossible," he said. "The Dominion destroyed civilizations far older than yours. They would have crushed your species in hours." A few council members nodded in agreement. But Elena did not argue. Instead she gestured toward the hologram floating above them. The image changed. The warship was still there, hanging in orbit above Earth. But now smaller vessels were descending through the atmosphere. Alien troops stepping onto human soil. Cities burning. Human soldiers fighting with everything they had. Many of the council members watched quietly now. The earlier laughter was gone. The insectoid delegate tilted its head. "You are showing us a war your species could not possibly win," it said. "Yes," Elena replied calmly. "That is exactly what it was." The hologram changed again. Now it showed humans building defenses, gathering their armies, and launching desperate attacks against a far stronger enemy. Year after year the war continued. The Dominion expected a quick victory. Instead they found something else. Resistance. Human forces lost cities, lost battles, lost millions of lives. Yet they continued fighting. The High Speaker watched the images carefully. "Your species survived an invasion," he said slowly. "That is impressive, but many civilizations have done the same." Elena nodded slightly. "Yes," she said. "But most civilizations surrender when defeat becomes certain. Humans did not." The hologram shifted once more. Now the Dominion warships were firing massive beams at Earth's defenses. Entire regions of the planet burned under alien attacks. Many council members expected the next images to show humanity's defeat. Instead the battle kept going. Humans adapted. They studied the enemy. They learned the weaknesses in Dominion technology. Slowly the images showed something unexpected. Human ships appearing in orbit. Small at first. Primitive compared to Dominion cruisers. But growing stronger. Year by year. The reptilian delegate frowned as he watched. "This war lasted far longer than Dominion doctrine allowed," he said quietly. Elena finally looked directly at him. "Yes," she replied. "They expected a quick conquest. They did not expect humans." The hologram showed the final stage of the conflict. Human fleets rising from Earth's shipyards. Thousands of vessels launching together. The Dominion warships that once dominated the sky were now under attack from every direction. Council members leaned forward in their seats. Because the outcome was becoming clear. The powerful empire that once terrified the galaxy was losing. Ship after ship exploded in orbit. Dominion fleets were pushed back farther and farther from Earth. Until finally the last image appeared. The giant warship from the beginning. Broken and drifting in space. Destroyed by the very species it had come to conquer. The chamber remained silent. Elena Hayes lowered her hand as the hologram faded. The Carthan Dominion believed humanity was weak, she said calmly. They believed our world would fall in days. She paused briefly. But humans have a habit of surviving things that should destroy us. A quiet tension filled the chamber now. The council members who had laughed earlier were no longer smiling. The reptilian delegate slowly leaned back in his seat. Even if this story is true, he said carefully, it does not explain why the Dominion disappeared completely. Many others nodded. Because destroying one fleet was not the same as destroying an entire empire. Elena Hayes looked around the chamber one more time. Her voice remained steady. That is because the war did not end at Earth, she said. A few delegates exchanged uncertain looks. The Dominion retreated, Elena continued. They returned to their territory to rebuild their fleets. The High Speaker narrowed his golden eyes. And what did humanity do then? He asked. For a brief moment Elena Hayes allowed a small smile to appear. Humans followed them, she said quietly. The chamber fell into stunned silence once again. For several long seconds the Galactic Council chamber remained silent. The words of the human diplomat hung in the air like a quiet storm. Humans followed them. Many council members stared at Elena Hayes as if they had heard something impossible. The reptilian delegate slowly leaned forward again. That cannot be true, he said. Your species had only just survived an invasion of your own world. You are telling us that a young civilization then decided to chase the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Elena did not raise her voice. She simply nodded once. Yes, she said calmly. A low murmur spread through the chamber. The crystalline delegate spoke again, its voice sharp with disbelief. The Carthan Dominion controlled dozens of star systems, it said. They had shipyards larger than your cities, fleets that could burn planets. No young species would risk attacking them inside their own territory. Elena looked up at the council calmly. Most species would not, she replied. But humans were not thinking like a galactic power at that time. Humans were thinking like survivors. The holographic screen above the platform activated again. New images appeared in the air. Human shipyards orbiting Earth. Engineers building warships day and night. Massive factories producing weapons and armor faster than ever before. After the invasion, humanity had changed. The fear of extinction had pushed the species into something new. The High Speaker watched carefully. You rebuilt your fleets, he said slowly. Yes, Elena replied. But we also learned something important. The images shifted again. Now they showed captured Dominion technology. Human scientists studying alien engines and weapons. Reverse engineering systems that were centuries ahead of Earth's technology. Council members exchanged uneasy looks. Because the pace of the development seemed unnatural. Human ships were evolving quickly. Too quickly. The reptilian delegate narrowed his eyes. You stole their technology, he said. Elena shook her head slightly. No, she answered. We improved it. The hologram zoomed outward. Human fleets leaving the solar system for the first time. Hundreds of ships traveling into deep space. Following the retreating Dominion forces. Several council members straightened in their seats. Your species had barely reached the stars, one alien said quietly. And you chased an empire. Yes, Elena said. Because humans understood something the Dominion did not. The High Speaker leaned forward slightly. And what was that? He asked. Elena's voice remained calm. If we allowed them to rebuild, she said. They would return to finish what they started. So humanity made a decision. The hologram showed the next stage of the war. Human fleets entering Dominion space. Massive alien fortresses guarding important star systems. Dominion commanders confident that the humans would never dare attack them again. But they were wrong. Human ships appeared suddenly in their territory. Small at first, but aggressive. Striking supply lines. Destroying outposts. Disappearing before the Dominion fleets could respond. Guerrilla warfare across the stars. The insectoid delegate clicked its mandibles slowly. You fought them like predators, it said. Elena nodded. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting wars on our own world, she explained. We learned how to survive against stronger enemies. The images above them showed Dominion fleets growing more desperate. Their commanders confused by the relentless human attacks. The war that was supposed to end quickly was now spreading across their empire. Human forces adapted faster than expected. Each battle made them stronger. Each loss made them more determined. The reptilian delegate spoke again, but this time his voice was quieter. How long did this war last? He asked. Elena looked up at the hologram. 23 years, she answered. Several council members reacted with surprise. For most galactic civilizations, wars were short and efficient. Entire planets surrendered quickly to avoid destruction. But the images showed something very different. Human fleets fighting battle after battle. Shipyards building new vessels faster than the Dominion could destroy them. Entire star systems slowly falling out of Dominion control. Then the final images appeared. Dominion capital ships exploding one by one. Human fleets surrounding the last strongholds of the Empire. And finally the Dominion capital world. A massive planet covered in cities and defense platforms. The council chamber was completely silent now. Elena Hayes looked around the room once more. When the Dominion came to Earth, she said quietly, they believed they were hunting prey. The hologram faded slowly. But by the time the war ended, she continued, they realized something too late. The High Speaker watched her closely. And what did they realize? He asked. Elena Hayes answered in the same calm voice. They were no longer the hunters. They had become the hunted. A cold silence spread across the Galactic Council chamber. The Galactic Council chamber was no longer filled with laughter. Now it was filled with silence and uneasy thoughts. Thousands of alien delegates sat quietly, replaying the images they had just seen. A young species from a small blue planet had not only survived an invasion, it had chased its enemy across the stars, and destroyed an empire that once terrified the galaxy. The High Speaker slowly lowered his glowing staff. His golden eyes remained fixed on the human diplomat standing calmly in the center of the chamber. For centuries, he said slowly, the disappearance of the Carthan Dominion has been one of the greatest mysteries in our history. Many council members nodded quietly. Entire research groups had studied the ruins of Dominion worlds. Explorers had searched empty star systems where their fleets once lived. But no one had ever discovered the truth. Until now. A tall avian delegate spread its silver wings slightly. If your story is true, it said carefully, then humanity destroyed an empire that ruled dozens of systems. Yes, Elena Hayes replied simply. A low wave of whispers moved through the chamber. The reptilian counselor who had laughed earlier no longer looked amused. Instead his eyes were narrow and thoughtful. You expect this council to believe that a species only recently capable of interstellar travel defeated the Dominion, he said. Elena looked at him calmly. You already know it is possible, she answered. Because the Dominion is gone. That simple statement made the chamber even quieter. The High Speaker leaned forward slightly. If humanity truly fought such a war, he said slowly, then why has the galaxy never heard of it before? Many delegates turned toward the human again. Because that question mattered. A war of that scale should have been known across the stars. But no record of humanity defeating the Dominion existed in galactic archives. Elena Hayes folded her hands calmly behind her back. Because humanity did not want the galaxy to know, she said. A ripple of confusion moved through the council. The crystalline delegate spoke again. You destroyed an empire and then chose to hide it, it said. That makes no sense. Elena shook her head gently. It made perfect sense to us, she replied. After the war ended, Earth was exhausted. The holographic screen appeared again above the platform. This time the images showed human cities rebuilding after the long conflict. Shipyards damaged by years of battle. Families returning to their homes after decades of war. Our planet had survived, Elena continued. But we had also learned something important about the galaxy. Several council members leaned forward slightly. And what was that? The High Speaker asked. Elena looked slowly around the massive chamber. At the time, she said quietly, humanity was still a young species among ancient civilizations. If the galaxy discovered that we had destroyed the Dominion, some would fear us. Others might try to control us. Many might decide it was safer if humanity never became powerful enough to challenge them. The chamber remained silent, because many delegates understood exactly what she meant. The reptilian counselor finally spoke again. So your species hid the truth, he said. Yes, Elena answered. We focused on rebuilding our world. We explored quietly, traded peacefully, and waited. The insectoid delegate tilted its head. Waited for what? It asked. Elena's calm expression did not change. For the right moment, she replied. The words hung in the air for a moment. Then the High Speaker spoke again. And why reveal the truth now? He asked. The human diplomat slowly looked up at the symbol of the Galactic Council glowing above the chamber. Because humanity is no longer hiding, she said. We have rebuilt. We have grown stronger. And now we are ready to stand among the civilizations of the galaxy. The reptilian delegate crossed his massive arms. You expect this council to welcome a species that secretly destroyed an empire, he said. Elena met his gaze without fear. No, she replied calmly. I expect the council to understand something. The chamber grew even quieter. And what is that? The High Speaker asked. Elena Hayes took a slow breath before answering. That humans never wanted to become the most dangerous species in the galaxy, she said. A few delegates shifted uneasily. But when someone threatens our home, she continued, humans will do whatever it takes to survive. The chamber was completely silent again. For the first time since the human diplomat had arrived, the members of the Galactic Council were no longer laughing. Now they were wondering if they had made a terrible mistake. The Galactic Council chamber remained tense. Every delegate sat in uneasy silence, processing what they had just learned. Even the loudest voices of mockery had disappeared, replaced by whispers and murmurs of disbelief. Elena Hayes stood calmly at the center of the chamber, her hands folded, her eyes steady. She let the silence grow for a few moments, knowing that every second added weight to her words. Finally, she spoke, her voice clear and steady. The galaxy believes humanity is young, weak, and predictable, she said. But those who underestimated us have disappeared. The reptilian delegate who had laughed at her first words narrowed his eyes. Your words are strong, human, he said cautiously. But the galaxy has no reason to trust a species that hides its strength. Elena tilted her head slightly. Trust is earned through action, not words, she replied. And our actions speak louder than any council chamber could. She gestured toward the floating screens, which lit up again with new images. Human scientists exploring distant planets, discovering new life. Human fleets delivering aid to worlds threatened by natural disasters. Humans building trade routes and alliances, quietly helping civilizations grow. The council members leaned in closer, seeing that humanity had not only survived, but also uplifted others while hiding its own strength. Elena took a deep breath and looked around the chamber. You laughed at humanity because we seemed small and fragile, she said softly. But size and age are not the measures of power. The measure is what a species does when everything is at stake. The insectoid delegate clicked its mandibles slowly. You suggest that humans are stronger than we believed, it said. Yes, Elena replied. Stronger than any of you imagined. The High Speaker's golden eyes scanned the chamber. He had seen countless civilizations rise and fall. Yet there was something in humanity he had never seen before: resilience, determination, and courage against overwhelming odds. Elena continued. Humans did not conquer the galaxy out of greed or ambition. We survived, we adapted, we learned, and we defended our home. But now, we are ready to join the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as equals. The chamber remained quiet for a long moment. Then slowly, one by one, delegates began to nod. Some still wary, others impressed, but all finally silent in respect. The reptilian counselor spoke last, his voice lower than before. "Perhaps we misjudged your species," he said carefully. "Yes," Elena answered. "And you are not the first to do so." She paused and smiled faintly. "But you may be the first to truly understand." The High Speaker raised his glowing staff once more. "Humanity has proven its strength and its wisdom," he declared. "The Council acknowledges your right to speak, and to stand among us." A ripple of quiet approval moved through the chamber. The laughter from before was gone, replaced by a new respect. Delegates whispered to each other, realizing they had witnessed something rare. A species that had survived, adapted, and grown stronger without arrogance. A species worthy of the stars. Elena Hayes bowed slightly. "And that," she said softly, "is why humanity is here." For the first time since she had entered the council chamber, there was no mockery, no doubt, and no fear. Only the silent understanding of a species that had earned its place among the greatest civilizations in the galaxy. The Galactic Council had laughed at humanity. But now, the galaxy would never underestimate Earth again. And in that quiet chamber, the small blue planet's ambassador had done what many believed impossible. She had shown the universe that humans were not just survivors. They were warriors, thinkers, and equals. And for humanity, the stars had just opened a new chapter. The Council would remember this day forever. The day the human diplomat stood alone, and made the entire galaxy stop and listen. Because some species are underestimated at first, but never for long.